Hello, Steve Lindsley. Welcome to my shop. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this Southwest-inspired vase with Thunderbird feature ring. It's mainly a mesquite with the feature ring being purple heart and yellow heart with a little bit of black veneer thrown in. It was a lot of fun to make. It's only 6 inches tall. If you noticed some of my other videos, or if you watch some of my other videos, you generally know that I make pieces that are larger than this. But some of the smaller pieces are certainly no less challenging, and they're just as much fun to make. So, and it uses a lot less wood. So if there is an advantage, my mesquite supply is getting kind of low, so I'm going to need to find a new supply for that. So it was a lot of fun to make. I get my inspiration from Native American pottery and the baskets from the southwestern area of the United States, and that's what I did with this one. I just looked at a bunch of photos of different images of pottery and baskets and kind of sketched out a shape that was pleasing to me. Like I said, it was fun to make, so stay tuned, watch the video, and I'll show you how I made my Southwest inspired vase with Thunderbird feature ring. Well, here's the plan for our project. It's about 6 inches tall. I sketched out a shape that I found pleasing. For a feature ring, going to use a Thunderbird in the center there, which is a classic for these type of vessels. So that we're going to use that. What I did was I made the feature ring out of purple heart and yellow heart, and you can see the Thunderbirds there. I think they came out pretty nice. I said in my previous video on laying these laying out a segment of turning that you want to do the feature ring first, which I did in this case, and I was shooting for a 5-inch diameter on the feature ring, and I came in at about 4.85, which is pretty close. So then what I did is reset the center line to 4.85, and then after that I could go ahead then and calculate all the diameters and the segment length and width and all the other stuff that goes along with the segmented turning. So now that that's all done, we can go ahead and start cutting the rings into segments. I'm going to use mesquite for most of the project. I think it's going to look pretty nice with the purple heart and yellow heart. So that's going to be the majority of the pieces. So before we get into it and start cutting the other pieces, let me show you how I made this Thunderbird feature ring. These are the pieces for the feature ring. I got some purple heart and yellow heart. They're about two inches wide. I got several pieces that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the wedgie sled. I set the one fence at 30 degrees, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut some triangles here so I can glue the feature ring pieces together. I have a couple of pieces of MDF put together, and I'm going to use that for clamping up these pieces. I'm using a new glue by Type Bonds called Thick and Quick, or Quick and Thick, or something like that, I think. It's supposed to set up in like 15 minutes. So we'll just put the veneer in there and then use the clamps to squeeze the purple heart pieces in there. And once we do that, this one gave me a little bit of grief, so I had to put a little bit more glue on it. But generally it went pretty well. I think I made 10 altogether, even though I only needed 8. Once the glue dried, I went ahead and cleaned up one edge of the piece here, and then once that was done, I set my stop so that I was cutting off 1/8-inch pieces. So I'd put the stop in the miter saw track, cut off an 1/8-inch piece, and just keep doing that till I pretty much cut off as many pieces as I felt like I needed. Alright, here's the pieces off that we just cut. And now the question is, how do we make these into a Thunderbird? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top one and I'm going to flip it over. And that's going to be the head. And then we're going to take this one and move it out of the way. That's going to be the tail. The next thing I want is a long one. So I'm going to take that bottom one there and put it up against that piece. And then I'm going to take a shorter one. So I'm going to put that one aside. I'm going to put this one up against there like that. And then the tail piece we're going to put on like this. If I can get it to stand up there. So once I do that, let me get it a little closer maybe. Once I do that, we'll get our little Thunderbird. Now what we'll do is we'll put some pieces on the bottom, another piece on there, and a piece on there to further define it so that it looks a little bit better. So that's going to be our Thunderbird that we're going to use in this feature ring. Well, it's just a matter now of gluing up the feature ring. I'm going to use the Tight Bond Ultimate, formerly known as Tight Bond 3, because I need a little bit more open time than that other quick and thick gives me. So it's just a matter of putting some glue on them and clamping them up until it sets up and then moving on to the next one. Some double stick tape holds the piece onto my little L-shaped jig there, and I just use that to clean up one face of the piece, and then I just take it off and use that face against the fence and just run the other side through and clean it up. Since I needed 8 pieces for my feature ring, the included angle on our wedgie sled is 45 degrees, which means I'm cutting a 22.5 degree angle on each side. I have a center line marked on the each piece, so I know how wide I want them to be. So I just a matter of using a wedgie sled and cutting the pieces. Worked out great. Need some 1/8 inch purple heart spacers, so I just reset the wedgie sled to 90 degrees, and I'll just use that to cut the spacers for the feature ring. All that's left is to glue it up. I'll use some Tight Bond Ultimate again, just give me a little extra open time. And it's just a matter of putting on some glue and putting a spacer and then putting a clamp on it and wait until it dries. Needed to come up with a way to hold this piece on the lathe while I turned it around, so I used my large jaws in expansion mode, which is a little unusual, but there's really not a lot of problem with that because it was holding up pretty securely, and I only needed to cut a real small rabbet on the inside so that I could mount it to a waste block. Using the diameter from that little rabbet that I cut, I just mark it out on my waste block and then use a square nose scraper to cut it to the right size. And it's just a matter of test and fit until you get a tight fit on the piece to the waste block. And once I got a nice tight fit there, I'm just going to use some hot glue to hold it to the waste block. And once I let the glue set for a little while, it's just a matter of checking to see if it's running true, which it is, and then go ahead and use a 3/8 inch bowl gouge and a scraper to turn it round and remove any flat spots. And then once that's done, that's pretty much it for the feature ring. Well, it's back to the mesquite pieces. I got the wedgie sled reset to cut a 16 segment ring. I had several different pieces of mesquite I'm using. I really didn't have one piece that was enough to do the whole vessel, so I just cut a little bit from each board and then kind of mixed it all together for a nice pleasing pattern when I put the pieces together. Gluing the rings up was pretty much a standard kind of thing. It's pretty much a similar process as the feature ring. So here I'm back to the quick and thick glue. He said it sets up in 15 minutes and you're able to actually do something with it. So part of the wait time sometimes is waiting for the rings to dry, glue to dry as they go together. So this speeds the process up a little bit. That first ring I glued on was the bottom ring, and it was glued to a solid piece of wood, which is the base. This is the very top ring, and I'm gluing it to a waste block. Normally I'd run the rings through the drum sander to clean them up, but these were pretty small, and I didn't want to take the chance of having them get stuck in the drum sander or whatever, so I'm just put it in the large jaws and use a bowl gouge to clean it up, and then hit it with the sanding board, and then that piece is ready to be glued to the next one. Here I have a yellow heart ring glued between the top and bottom pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and split it down the middle just using a parting tool. Once it's split, I'm going to go ahead and clean it up and turn it down to an 1/8 inch. So I'll use a parting tool, a bowl gouge, a sanding block, and whatever it takes to get the piece cleaned up and ready for the next ring. Once the two yellow heart pieces were cleaned up, I glued a purple heart piece between them, and then we just do the same process over again. Here I've glued the feature ring to the bottom piece, and now I'm just trying to get this waste block off. Give me a little bit of grief, but once I just turned off the glue and turned it down a little bit and was persuasive, that it came apart, but it was stubborn there for a few minutes. At this point, the piece is not totally glued together. I just have the top piece pressed onto the bottom part and feature ring so that I can start to rough out the shape. So I'm going to start by cleaning up the feature ring and getting it to a diameter that I wanted, and then we'll just go ahead after that and move on to the rest of the vessel using a bowl gouge, a scraper, whatever it takes to clean it up and get it to the shape that I want. Once I had the corners knocked off, I'm going to use my parting tool and calipers to set some diameters on the vessel. I'll take a reading off the diagram and to set the calipers. Not something I always do. It was I thought I'd give it a try, kind of a visual reference to turn the shape of the vessel. I can't say that it was an advantage, and truthfully probably wouldn't do it again. I'd just go by eye. The waste block on the tailstock end of the lathe here was giving me a bunch of grief, keeping me from getting the shape I wanted on the top, so off camera I just went ahead and wasted away most of the waste block. At this point, the vessel is still just pressed together. So once I finish up this final shape here, we'll go ahead and take it apart, and then we'll start hollowing out the inside. Alright, here we go to hollow out the inside. I'm going to turn the walls till they're a 1/4 inch thick, and I'm going to use a carbide tool to do that. You can't really see much with this from this view, so I'll show a little bit of this, but then I'll show more when I cleaned out the top. It turned out a little bit easier to see. I kept checking the thickness with my calipers and just kept working away and worked my way down to the bottom of the vessel till I got it pretty much a 1/4 inch thick. Once the bottom was done, I turned my attention to the top. I'm just using a 3/8 inch bowl gouge to clean this piece out. All right, let's hold it here for a second. The worst possible thing happened is I was turning this piece. I noticed that there was a void in the wood in the top ring. I was pretty disappointed, but then the more I turned it, the more I was able to turn that piece out. In the end, it worked out all right, but I was really nervous there for a little while. Finally, the top and bottom pieces are glued together. I used glue very sparingly. I didn't want a lot of squeeze out on the inside of the vessel, so I'd used just enough glue to hold the thing together. I'm using a negative rake scraper to clean everything up, smooth it out. Once I was finished with that, I sanded everything up to 320. Removing the piece from the waste blocks is always one of my more nerve-wracking part of the project. So it's just a matter of separating the top piece and then cleaning that up, the inside of that top piece up, sanding it a little bit, and then we can get ready to remove it from the bottom waste block. I'm using my homemade cone center here, just a bunch of pieces of MDF glued together, and we're going to go ahead and part it off from the bottom waste block. At about this point, I'm thinking to myself, I should probably stop and cut this off with a saw, but do I? No. And there it goes. It parts itself off. Fortunately, the cone center held it on, and it was no worse for wear, but it was a little, made your heart skip a couple of beats when that happened. So, turned out okay, though. Okay. That's how I made my little Southwest inspired turning. For finish, I used 8 coats of an oil urethane called by General Finishes called Armor Seal. It's a time-consuming process to put it on, but I think it comes out nice in the end. It gives the wood a nice soft feel, and it's really the finish that I prefer on most of my turnings. The inside I finished with a couple coats of shellac-based sanding sealer just to seal everything up good. So, hope you enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making this project. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and I'll get to them as quickly as I can. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe. For those that have already subscribed, I thank you very much. Your support is certainly appreciated. So, until the next video, have a great day, and we'll see you soon.